Hi there. In this video, we are going to take a look at some circles. I love circles. There's a lot of really nifty stuff about them, but we are going to just scratch the surface. We're going to talk about circumference and area of a circle and how to find those. Before we can jump into finding them, though, we need to cover some vocabulary. So when we talk about a circle, the distance around the circle, so if you were to stand right here and you walk your happy little self all the way around and back to where you started, you have walked around the entire circumference of the circle. It's like perimeter, but for circles. Now, inside the circle, there are parts that you need to know. First, we have what's called the center. And then there is a line segment, so a piece of a line that passes through the center of the circle and has endpoints on the edge of the circle. So we want a line segment that passes through the center of the circle and has endpoints on both sides of the circle. I'm going to move my center on the line. This one is called the diameter. Diameter starts on one side, goes through the center, and stops at the other side. The line segment that starts at the center of the circle and has an endpoint on the edge of the circle. So in other words, if I start at the center and I go to the edge, this piece is called the radius. So the segment that starts at the center and has an endpoint on the edge of the circle is the radius. And it just so happens that 2 times the radius equals the diameter. Fun fact. So there are 2 formulas you need to be successful with circles. The first one is for the area. Remember, area fills the inside of a shape like carpet on the floor. We're going to use pi times the radius squared. And the units on our circle, those are for an area anyway, is always going to be units squared. So for measuring in feet, it's feet squared. If it's centimeters, centimeters squared. The circumference of the circle, there are 2 options depending on what you're given in the circle. So if you are given the radius, you're going to multiply 2 times pi times the radius, if you know the radius. If you happen to be given diameter, you can always divide by 2 and use the top formula, or you can use pi times diameter. Either one of those will get you there. And when we're talking about circumference, our units are just going to be plain old units. So it's going to be centimeters, inches, feet, no squared. Nothing fancy. So let's go use it. Here, they are telling us the radius. So I'm going to go label my picture. That was one of the big things I was taught to do when I was in school, and it has served me well. So I'm going to continue with that habit. Radius is 20 inches. Well, radius is is a shorter word than diameter. So that means it's the shorter piece. So I found the radius. Now for diameter, I know that diameter is 2 times the radius. So that would be 2 times 20 inches. So my diameter is 40 inches. For circumference, my formula was 2 times pi times the radius. My radius is 20. We are going to go ahead and get an approximation instead of an exact value. This would be 40 times pi. I'm going to pull out Desmos. And I'm going to do 40 times 3.14. So I get 125.6 inches. Now, do they give us rounding instructions? Nope, so we get to pick. So we're going to stick with 125.6. The last piece we need is area. Well, area is pi times radius. That is not an R. So we have pi times 3.14, my goodness, 20 squared. So I'm going to go over here to Desmos, and I'm going to do 3.14 times 20 squared. And I get 1,256, and I'm doing area, so I need inches squared. That's it, guys. This time, we are given a radius of 2 inches. So I'm going to label my picture. I need to find diameter. Well, when I was in high school, another one of my teachers said, always start by writing the formula. And I didn't say that on the first one, but I think it's a really, really helpful habit to get into. So remember to WTF, write the formula. So I know diameter is 2 times the radius. Well, that's 2 times 2 inches. Well, I can do that without even taking off my shoes and socks. That's 4 inches. We're dealing with a length, so we don't need a squared on our units. Just plain old inches will get the job done. The next one we need is circumference. So again, WTF, write the formula. Circumference is 2 times pi times the radius. Well, 2 isn't going to change its value, pi isn't going to change its value, and our radius was 2 inches. So I'm going to plug it in just like it looks. 2 times 3.14 times 2. So I get 12.56. And we are in inches. The last thing we need is the area. Write the formula. Area is pi r squared. Radius is still 2. Well, we've already solved this problem. This is exactly the same problem we had for circumference. So this is also going to be 2.56 square inches. Let's do one where we get some different information. Here we go. Let's start this time with diameter. So if we start with diameter and we want to find the radius, we know that diameter is 2 times the radius. So I'm going to come over here to my scratch work. There's my scratch work. And diameter is 2 times the radius. Well, I know the diameter. The diameter is 24. And by now, you guys are equation solving rock stars. And you know that in order to undo multiplication, you divide. So that tells me my radius is 12 inches. Circumference was pi times diameter, since I already have diameter. So I need to go to Desmos and do 3.14 times 24. That means if I started walking on one side of that circle and I walked all the way around the outside of the circle, I will have walked 75.36 inches by the time I finish. The last thing we need to find is area. And I'm going to start by writing the formula. I need pi. Radius, we figured out, was 12. So then I hop over to Desmos, and I'm going to replace my 24 with a 12 squared. That gives me 452.16 square inches for the area. Now, Ms. Graham, is it wrong if you don't put squared on the inches? Yes. Inches is for a linear measurement, a distance, a length. Area is a completely different measurement. So if you don't get the right units on it, it doesn't count. This is another one. They're given diameter. My suggestion would be to pause the video, see if you can find radius, circumference, and area, and then start it up again to check your work. I know that diameter is 22 inches. I'm going to find the radius first. So I'm going to come over here to my scratch work. I know that diameter is 2 times the radius. Well, I know diameter. I'm told diameter is 22 inches. If I divide by 2, because dividing is the inverse operation for multiplying, I find out that I have a radius of 11 inches. Now I need to find circumference. So, WTF, I'm going to stick with pi d. Why? Because I want to. If you want to use 2 pi r, by all means, do that one. We're going to end up in the same place. So I'm going to come over to Desmos and I'm going to multiply 22 times 3.14. And I get a circumference of 69.08 inches. For area, write the formula. Radius was 11 Don't forget to square it. .14 times 11 squared is 379.94 inches squared. Don't forget the squared. Now 7 and 8 are a little bit different. We start out with circumference this time, but that's okay. That's what your scratch work is for. So I am given circumference, and I know that circumference is 2 pi times the radius. Well, I know the c. I can plug in for c. That's 44. So I'm going to do 2 times pi times the radius. Well, since these two places are both multiplying, to undo those, I can divide, but not with the highlighter. So I'm going to divide by 2 pi. 2 pi divided by 2 pi is just 1. So I'm left with radius on the right. And then I want to do 44 divided by 2 times 3.14. So my radius is 7.006369 and some change. That is so close to 0, folks. We're just going to go with 0. So our radius is 7 centimeters. I left off the answer blank for diameter, but that's okay. We need to find diameter. I know that diameter is 2 times the radius. So that means I have a diameter of 14 centimeters. And now we need to go and find the area. We're going to write the formula. So we need pi times the radius squared. So that's pi times 7 squared. And I go over to Desmos, and I type in 3.14 times 7 squared. So I have an area of 153.86 square centimeters. We have 1 left. We're given circumference again, so this would be a great time for you to see if you could follow number 7 as an example and solve 8 on your own. I'm going to come up here to my scratch work, and I'm going to write the formula. I know circumference is, I'm going to go a little wild here. I'm going to go with pi d. So if I start with circumference, I have 132 is pi times diameter. Well, I want the d by itself, so I'm going to divide by pi on both sides. That's going to cancel my pi's. And I'm going to go over to Desmos, and I'm going to do 132 divided by 3.14. And I have a diameter of 42.03, and we're measuring in feet. That's a big circle. So 42.03. Now I know if I know diameter, I have a formula to get radius. So diameter, I'm going to plug in 42.03 for the diameter. And if I divide both sides by 2, I will end up with the radius. So I go over to Desmos again, and I'm going to divide by 2. So I end up with a radius of 21.02 feet. That's a big radius. The last thing we need to find is the area. So I am going to write the formula. It is an excellent starting place. So I want pi times the radius squared. 21.02 squared. 3.14 times 21.02 squared. 1,387, we'll just do 2 decimal places, 0.38 square feet. That is the end for this section. In part 2, we will take a look at some compound shapes, or we are going to take the area and perimeter and circumference formulas for all of the shapes that we've talked about and combine them into compound shapes. It's going to be awesome.